Welcome to the Called to Love podcast, a show dedicated to exploring how human relationships and intimacy with God are connected. Join us as we discuss hard-hitting topics that inspire and motivate you to go deeper into the intricacies of building meaningful relationships. Here now are your hosts, James Levacy and Brian Canadle.
Welcome, everybody. I think today is going to be a really fun topic. We're going to talk about offense.
That sounds good, James.
I think we're going to appeal to 100% of the population.
All of us.
So
everybody's included.
Yeah, this ought to be the most popular podcast ever. No, it's funny because we haven't met anybody that hadn't been offended, and it seems like there's this rule or this grid of what people have done that is actually justifies the offense. Like, you shot my dog, or you divorced me, or you rejected me, or something.
Yes.
So that's a tough one.
Well, everybody has a story. Everyone has been offended, and that's you'll usually spot someone or recognize an offense or something that's bothered someone because it consumes a large part of their conversation. And we enjoy that because we know that they can be free from offense if they really understand what it is and what causes the response can keep you locked in and feel helpless and paralyzed. But we see a lot of people free from that. It's great.
Yeah, it really is. What is the limitation? I mean, how do we get over offense? I'll tell you a story real quick.
Please.
A very dear friend of mine, of course, we were in a close relationship. We were meeting regularly. We have our meeting one day, and he's in a really bad mood, upset about some things. And, of course, he's got to talk to me about it because it's what we do. And his brother actually accidentally killed his dog. And I told my brother, I told him, he gets too hot. You gotta bring him in. You gotta, watch it. And his brother just lost track of time and whatever. And the dog died of heat exhaustion. And he was really mad. And he told me all the things he did in front of his kids, in front of his wife, in front of his parents. And I said, how did it work out? He said, everybody's mad at me. He ended up stirring up his whole family to where nobody was happy with him, and his brother was the one that caused the offense.
Wow.
And I said, so let me get this right. Every night before you go to bed, you're reading the Bible to your kids. Yes. And you told me that you put on praise and worship music every night before you go to bed. Yes. And y'all say your prayers, but yet you go off the handle on someone in front of them. I mean, there's a lot of people that'll listen to this and say, well, I would have too. He killed my dog. But we're not supposed to.
Well, most offenses only attach to an existing offense. There's never just one. It's an accumulation that has built over a period of time. And it's interesting, the offenses can be smaller and smaller, but they still look bigger and bigger because they're tying to something that already exists. And our desire and hope is to educate, to inform, inspire people, challenge them on how to resolve and how to get over offense. The Bible's very clear about it. Ephesians 6:1 has got to be one of the best chapters. I'm sorry, Galatians.
Yeah, I know
Galatians 6:1.
I know you too good.
Thank you, Bub. Yeah, Galatians 6:1.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful example of the heart of the Father on how to approach offense.
Yeah, look that up. It's a really good one. So how did he get over that? We talked it out, and it seems absurd to give people advice over something that hurts so bad. But when you're in a relationship with somebody like that, it's probably the only time you can really give honest advice.
It is.
I instructed him, you're going to have to humble yourself to your family. You're going to have to ask for forgiveness. You're going to have to reconcile your relationship with your brother. You're going to have to somehow approach this thing that you're very upset about and you're going to have to leave that behind, and you're going to have to recognize there's never going to be a greater opportunity, never, to show love. Like, right here's the peak. You killed my
Yes.
dog, and I'm going to love you anyway. You know, and Christ did so much more than that.
Yeah, every person that is dealing with an offense has a decision to make. Am I going to stay in it, or am I going to let it go? If you choose to let it go, it's because you know that it's impossible to be in right relationship with the Lord when there is aught against your brother. So that's your option. You can either hold on to it or you can let go of it. And that's our heartbeat, is how do you let go of it?
Yeah, I very seldom have I seen when someone has humbled themselves in the midst of an offense where they're not wrong. They're right. Someone else did something. But rarely will that someone else come first. So it's the one who's, spiritual. It's the
Right.
one who's wanting to be like Christ. When they humble themselves, I haven't seen it fail. It does nothing but reconcile the relationship. It brings tears to the other person's eyes because they realize how hard it must have been for you to come and say you love me.
At some point, you can reach a place where it no longer is about who's right or wrong. It's about restoring relationships. It's about being in right standing with the Lord and others.
And that's what it's all about. Hey, we're going to look at a clip of where a guy's talking about how he was highly offended. And you may think rightfully so. Let's take a look.
Okay.
I have a daughter who is married to an abusive husband. She was warned not to marry her, that she should not marry. And we're working very much. When it's someone offending me, I can almost handle that. When it's somebody hurting your child, then it's difficult to handle. So my question was, what's my strategy? And Tony and Lily gave us some good advice.
Wow, that clip.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to see the second part to that. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm not going to be offended. I'm going to forgive. I'm just going to let go. But then I often see, like, things will come up and you'll see that person that forgave and forgot and was not offended are still offended. So how do you know if you really are not offended, if you've really forgiven and been set free from that offense? How do you know?
That's good, James, because there's got to be fruit. I recently watched a message from Bill Johnson at Bethel, and he was sharing how he was doing just a few more counseling sessions before he passed it on to the rest of his staff because of time and other things. But he said he had one more session, and he met with this couple, and in meeting this couple and talking to them, she told him about how her husband has not forgiven her of something that she had done years ago, but yet he says he has. So Bill says, so he looks at the man and says, is it true? Have you forgiven your wife? And he was like, yes, I've forgiven her. And he goes, well, where's the fruit? And he thought about it, and he had nothing to prove. And so I think they left, and then he had some homework or something they needed to do. He was going to work on evidence. He was going to work on fruit. And so they came back and met with Bill that second and last time, and she said, he asked her, has he forgiven you? And she said, no, he has not forgiven me still. So he asked the guy, and he said, tell me, where did you have fruit? And he said, yes. And he began to say, here are some of the things that I've done. And then he asked the lady, his wife, and said, did he in fact do this? And she said, yes, he did. And he said, well, it sounds like to me you can't recognize the fruit. So what we often find is, number one, how to resolve conflict, and number two, how do you show fruit from that? And that's a big deal. And that's one of the things we did at our conference is we opened the door for people to identify who they were having issues with by writing it down. And then we created opportunities to strategize and even role play. Before they ever left the conference, they actually had someone that would stand in and become that person, and gave them an opportunity to know they could walk in confidence, that they could have the courage to say, "Hey, I've been needing to do this," and it was just a beautiful thing. But the fruit is the expressions of love. It's absolutely paramount.
One of the challenges you're going to have in this game of forgiving and not being offended is you're going to get frustrated when other people don't recognize it. So we're doing all this work, and that story was beautiful because the wife was so used to the husband, failing, that when he actually started putting effort in, she didn't notice it because he was a failure. That's who he was. He had developed an identity. And, consistency sells. Not just consistency for a day, but consistency over a long period of time sells. When we're being transformed in Christ, it's not something that people are going to be willing to recognize right off the bat. Even if it's true and it's apparent to some other people, the biggest complaint we hear sometimes is, I've been trying so hard and she just don't get it, or he just don't get it, and I'm tired of trying. Well, you've already set yourself up for failure because you've put an expiration date on the time in which this love, patience, kindness is supposed to take place.
Yes, I know. When that's good, James. When I remember you brought up not too long ago about Peter's struggle with forgiving and not being angry and holding on, just wanting to wipe them out, and was hoping to find a limited number of times we have to forgive. And Jesus just knocked it out of the park and left him hanging there. What we often find is forgiveness is not just, and you hear people say this all the time, well, I forgive them, but I will never forget. Well, love keeps no record of wrong. And we are challenged, we are called to forgive. And the best way to do that is not just make it a willful decision to forgive, but to have an encounter with the forgiver. And it will change your attitude. You remember Chris shared that with us before. That's a powerful statement. Have an encounter with the forgiver, because once you do that, people can see that you're free.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that you're going to have to do too, this is going to be a challenge. I'm going to love them, but I ain't going to like them. Well, thank goodness Jesus didn't think like that.
I know.
I mean, he went all out. And, I mean, who in the world but his closest friends betrayed him? After all he had done, he still said, Father, forgive them, and then come back and ate fish with them. So this mindset that we've been taught, that we can love people, we don't have to like them, we should be striving to love.
Yes.
We should, but you're called to love. That's who you are. That's why you can't join it.
That's
you
so
already
good.
are. That's who you are.
Yeah, it's people, and you've seen this before, people are looking to see if you really are going to love them no matter what. They just need to know they're going to be loved no matter what, James.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a thief thinks somebody's stealing from them. Somebody that doesn't love thinks someone doesn't love them. So it is a hard thing to break through, but you can do it. I believe it.
That's good.
We're going to see the second part of this clip. I'm excited.
Yes.
But he asked, what I do? And I said, you value him and you love him and you thank him. Say, thank you. I love you so much. Thank you for being there for my daughter. Thank you for being my daughter. I'm so glad my daughter's there for me. And the look that he got on his face is like, well, I don't want to do that. And I said, well, you don't know, I didn't have a relationship with my dad for 10.5 years. And for 10.5 years, my dad called me, hey, son, how you doing? I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. He'd ask me how I'm doing at work. And I'd always try to get off the phone 10, 20 minutes in. Man, how can I get off the phone with this guy? I'm going to talk to him. He didn't condone anything I did. He told me the truth in love. And I didn't know nothing to do because I denied the truth. But he loved me. He was the only guy in 10 years to tell me, then dude, this path you're going on is off the right one. It only leads to destruction. But I didn't want to hear it. But that's why I love him so much today.
So there you go. That's how you do it. You have to forgive people. There's not an offense really big. Now, listen, I will say this. There's situations we have to get out of. I mean, we're not supposed to endure physical abuse and things like that. However, we can get out of a situation and we can still be free from it. So there's, to me, in my belief system and from what I've experienced in my life, there really is no great offense that can come that can bind me or keep me down to where I'm not free. I mean, I've known people that their parent killed their other parent, and they're just as free today as anybody I've ever seen. So, I mean, where's the limitations at? I don't think there can. I think we put them on ourselves and we have these social norms, but I don't think they should be there.
Well, because Christianity and being a follower of Jesus is an invitation for him to transform you. Part of transforming is becoming like him and less like us. And to become less like us is the only way we're able to truly love people like he does and resolve conflict and deal with offenses. So it's impossible no other way, because our relationship with others are a direct connection and correlation with how we are with the Father, and even in the Lord's Prayer, we can only be forgiven to the measure that we forgive others. So if we're not forgiving others, we're circumventing, we're actually sabotaging our connection with the Lord. And it's very difficult to talk to the Lord when you have aught in your heart. He even says, don't even take communion until you make things right with your brother. So he's constantly, he's the ultimate reconciler. He not only restored us or rescued us, and that's all he's asking us to do. And it'll be a dying for that to happen, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, the disclaimer here is, so you can't do it. We've been saying you can do it. Okay, you can't do it alone. You've got to get alone with the Father, and you have to let him pour into you. You have to let his wisdom, his peace, his love fill you. The more you hang out with him, the more you'll become like him. You will not possibly be able to understand how to forgive offenses and these great opportunities to be bitter if you're not at one with him.
That's good. That's good.
So we thank y'all for joining. We'll talk more about subjects like this as we go. Look forward to seeing you again.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
We hope this episode of the Called to Love podcast has enriched your life and offered valuable principles to apply on your personal journey. Please explore our website at www.calledto.love for more information and to share your feedback with us. Until our next episode, may you find peace and love. And always remember, you are called to love.